Mr. Speaker, on Thursday, February 18th, a press conference was held in the General Assembly, the purpose of which was to demand that Planned Parenthood not receive any funds out of the state budget. Media attending included ABC News Channel 8, CBN, The Washington Post, Richmond Times, The Virginian Pilot, Associated Press, and other fine news sources. Next day, press reports noted comments made at the press conference. Conspicuously absent from all these reports was the claim that any speakers at this press conference made statements calling handicapped children punishments from God for abortion. 3 days later, on February 21st, Capitol News Service claimed that I did in fact make such a statement. No other news service picked up this alleged statement. There was just silence, Mr. Speaker. Why was there silence? Because this statement was never said, period. All of Virginia's professional journalists missed what a Capitol News Service claims to have found? Curious. I encourage everyone to go to my website, www.delegatebob.com, to find the entire video of my comments and easily see for themselves that I never made such a comment. But it has been repeated endless times in print and in the electronic media without anyone producing the smoking gun tape. Of course, if some wish to make references, that is their prerogative. However, they should acknowledge that is what they are doing. Furthermore, it is no one's prerogative to claim I spoke words which never came from my mouth, have never been in my heart, and have never been in my public record. I have served here for nearly 2 decades. I believe most of you know me well enough to know that I would never make such a statement. I have championed the rights of unborn children, groups that Planned Parenthood thinks have no business being born. Everyone, Mr. Speaker, deserves a lifetime. I acknowledge that my extemporary remarks, nature's vengeance or punishments, could have certainly been used with better words to explain the medical research findings which show a high incidence of complications following induced abortions. Accordingly, I have posted on my website direct excerpts, not summaries, from 258 peer-reviewed studies from the National Library of Medicine, as well as the results of research contracts with the U.S. Public Health Service. For example, the Journal of Reproductive Medicine, which is not a theological publication, in November 2007 indicated the following, and I will quote because I'm not going to be misquoted. Induced abortion increased the early preterm delivery rates by 31.5%, with a yearly increase in initial neonatal hospital cost related to induced abortion of $1.2 billion. This is for the United States. And this is a survey of 59 English language articles. The yearly human cost include 22,917 early preterm births before 32 weeks and 1,096 excess cerebral palsy cases in very low birth weight newborns, that is below 1,500 grams. Mr. Speaker, actions within nature are not the direct actions of God. It would have been better had I used the words natural consequences to convey my meanings. But even so, not one professional news service at that time attributed a sinister meaning to my words. Furthermore, my personal and public life show a respect for unwanted or disabled children, including our adoption of 3 children, one of whom we were told by the adoption agency before we adopted Mary, had a 50-50 chance of carrying a gene which would cause her death as a young adult. We adopted her anyway. We found out, thank God, years later that she did not have that gene. My oldest son, now deceased, took personal care of his quadriplegic friend, taking him to school and sports events. I am sure you cannot forget my bills to provide health insurance for autistic children, which almost got me kicked out of the Republican caucus for my hardball tactics, as well as my decades-long concern of unborn children and pro-women legislation. And this year, I authored the cord blood bill to help disabled children and first responders to protect us, which this House unanimously approved. Mr. Speaker, I've also proposed House Bill 334, which passed the House of Delegates 95-2, and which requires women undergoing abortions to be offered medical articles, peer-reviewed medical articles, information concerning possible complications in future pregnancies, a bill which Planned Parenthood adamantly opposes. Mr. Speaker, there are powerful interests which seek to prevent this information from reaching women. And there is the tragedy of Planned Parenthood, which endorses prenatal diagnosis to eliminate the live birth of persons with disabilities. The disabled and their families are reacting in part to words I never said, never meant, and don't believe. I have served here 2 decades. You know these news accounts repeating this are not fair. But I continue to apologize to families for the fallout from all of this. Mr. Speaker, I take my oath of office seriously and believe it is important to protect my constituents by enforcing full transparency about a procedure that may impact future children. That is why I strongly believe that Planned Parenthood, which performs 1/4 of the nation's abortions nationwide and opposes protecting women with this vital information, should not receive 1 cent of Virginia tax money. Children, whether wanted or unwanted, intended or unintended, normal or disabled, or of any background, are blessings from a loving God. I have held this view from the first day I came here and will hold it to the last day I serve. I will continue to fight on their behalf, on the behalf of courageous families, for these wonderful children. Mr. Speaker, as to the VCU Capitol News Service, I forgive you for making this slanderous claim about me and my life. Nevertheless, there remains the obligation in truth and the journalistic obligation for the Capitol News Service to correct the record and publicly acknowledge the following. You never gave me a chance to defend myself. You never checked with me to verify whether I believed your claims or that my meaning was as you suggested. You have made inferences about my words but presented them to the public as if I actually said them. Your website, at least as of last night, continues to claim to present my full comments, but a transcript of my actual comments made available by CBN and now on my website shows you edited my comments in mid-sentence and omitted my reference to a VCU study of adverse complications from induced abortions relating to low birth weight and premature birth. Your report as to what was allegedly said was not verified by professional colleagues of the original press conference. You are using equivocal meanings to the terms nature and God to make a claim about children and the Creator that I don't believe and I never made. Mr. Speaker, let the truth be known. Capitol News Service, it is now your time. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.